I'm Liz Smith, maiden name Mason. I'm born and bred in a little town called Gadooga, far northwest New South Wales, near Brewarrina, 4 hours from Dubbo basically, about 20 miles or 20 kilometres from the Queensland border. Growing up in Gadooga, we had one shop. Everything was basic, as in food, but healthy food. Traditional Aboriginal families, we lived at each other's houses and our parents cooked great big huge meals for everybody, all of the kids in the neighbourhood and stuff like that. Grew up, our basic food back then, the fruit was oranges and apples basically, grapes, passion fruit. I remember one of the ladies up the other end of town, she actually had a mango tree, and so we thought, everyone in the town thought that was absolute luxury at Christmas time. And just living off the land basically. Like my dad was a shearer, so he brought the meat home. And back then when they were shearing, they would cut some of their wages out so that the men could have sheep to bring home to their families. It was a regular occurrence every Friday night for my dad to put what we call the killers down in the shed and skin the sheep and kill them and let them hang overnight, and that was our meat basically. I can remember going out to the river every holidays with my uncle Tiger, who's since passed away. His rule to us as kids were we couldn't take the only food we could take for the whole few days out at the river was fruit. He cooked our johnny cakes for us, our bread. We lived off the land, we lived off the fish in the river. He'd catch the goannas and snakes and stuff like that. Like I said, the only thing that we were allowed to take were fruit. Me being the stubborn little girl that I was, I starved all week. The only thing I ate was oranges and apples. I refused to eat anything else. I do eat fish now, yellow belly and cod. But the difference, I have 3 children, 3 daughters and 3 grandchildren, and I'm amazed at the difference in the food and their diets and their nutrition now compared to what we grew up with. You know, we had absolute basics. Now we have everything. One of my passions is cooking, and my granddaughter, who's 8, Ella, she loves cooking as well, but she's into the real healthy food thing. It's like, Nan, you have to have healthy food. By choice, she drinks water rather than Coke and gassy food and stuff like that, and I think that's an absolute credit to the schools now. But having said that, I worked in a women's refuge for about 9 years, and I was the child and family support worker doing lots of programs for victims of domestic violence, and a major part of that was getting programs together around healthy lifestyle, healthy living, food, nutrition, hygiene and all of that sort of stuff. And it's those families that come into our refuge who, it's a luxury for them to have, you know, things like steak and chicken and all of that sort of thing. You know, I had one little boy a family come from, they'd driven from up at Rockhampton, which was, I don't know, 14 hours drive to Lightning Ridge, and they were escaping the life that were up there for whatever reason, and they'd come down through all the backtracks. It was quite late at night, and I booked them in and everything, and then I said to the mother, oh, I'll get some mince out and some vegetables, and you can make some savoury mince or something like that. And she looked at me, because she was only a young mum and she had these 3 kids, and I said, do you know how to cook? And she said, no. And I said, well, okay, I'll cook you some savoury mince. Anyway, and I said, go and get the kids in the bath, and gave them kids clothes and everything. Showed her how to cook it, and the little boy came out and he said, Mum, we're not allowed to eat meat, remember? And I said, oh, sorry, thinking it was a religious thing. I said, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't even ask you. And she said, no, he doesn't mean that. And the little boy said, no, we can only eat at night time when we go through Macca's. He said, we only have hot chips and gravy and that, he said. And I just burst into tears, because you know, just that's the life that those little kids have been brought up on. And it was, I went back in the next day and he said, "Oh, Auntie, can you cook that meat again?" He said, "You know, that mince with all them coloured things in there," he said. We really need to educate our young people that they don't have to live that lifestyle. Girls, like the young girl was only, I think she was 19 or something, and she'd had these 3 kids. But she was so loyal to her man, like he'd been taken to jail. All she wanted to do was for us to get her a ticket to Bathurst so she could see her partner. And we're saying, you know, you really don't have to live this lifestyle. You do have a choice. Think about your children. You know, we can put you in a house and look after you and all of that. But her life was so wrapped around this partner of hers, and that was her life. That's all she could see. And, you know, dragging the kids along who hadn't been to school and lived out of a car and not even a suitcase, a plastic bag, basically. But then you have the other families, domestic victims of domestic violence, and they come in. All the mum wants to do is have a safe place for her and her children. That's all she wants, you know, and we help them. We get them back on track. We give them a house, or if they've got family in other towns, we help them get there. They ring us up, you know, and they're so grateful and they're just so happy to get out of that situation and make a better life for their children, you know. And I've had young girls come back 2 or 3 years later to Lightning Ridge and thank us and say, you know, like, if it wasn't for the safe house and the workers, I'd be still in that situation, you know, or I'd be in jail, or, you know, and things like that. And then just be so grateful and gone on. Like, another young girl come back and she's a teacher going to uni out at one of the schools at Redfern, can't remember the name of it, because she got out of that situation and she come down to stay with an auntie and she had a little girl, and now she's going to uni and to be a teacher, you know, and that's a success story. That's great.